Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dev Radio. Today, I'm here with Bruce Cosden and Richard Timmering, both CSAs. Bruce is from New York, Richard is from Arizona, and they're here to talk to us about some really interesting customer solutions I think you're going to enjoy. As always, we're here live on Teams, so we got Bruce here on Teams on the video chat, and we got Richard on one of the coolest space rig setups I've ever seen. Um, so let's get started. COVID-19, the world has changed around us, and it's just immediate urgency in getting everybody up and working just like it was a regular work day. But I don't know if everybody else has been trying to procure PCs and parts like me, but it's kind of difficult to do that. So I'd imagine for a company it's extremely difficult to procure, hundreds of thousands of laptops. So we're now in this kind of almost forced bring your own device situation. And Bruce and Richard, I'm hearing that your customers have worked with you to do some really cool, interesting solutions. I'd love to hear more about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. I'd love to talk about one of the largest customers that I'm working with right now at the moment. We've actually been in discussions with them about Windows Virtual Desktop pre-COVID after it went GA. This is probably one of the premier services that customers are requesting constantly. And, it's really because it can help contractors, employees, call centers, et cetera, all sorts of different people with a remote desktop experience. Basically, your Windows 10 desktop that you work with on your laptop, getting that same experience from a machine in the cloud where you're enabled locally with the machine assets running remotely in Azure. But we were having trouble getting traction with this customer trying to get that opportunity moving just, because of political wherewithal. And then COVID hit. And once COVID hit, there's nothing like an emergency to bring things to the forefront. So once that happened, they had multi tens of thousands of people that suddenly had to work from home. All of a sudden they couldn't procure enough assets. The VPN devices that they had, the point-to-site VPNs to get to the customer site, were not sufficient enough to handle 10,000 plus users suddenly trying to connect. So they absolutely needed a solution, and they needed Azure to do it. And that's where Windows Virtual Desktop came in. It was hugely helpful.
Yeah, Windows Virtual Desktop. I'm from a developer background, so I've heard about it. I've even played around with it a little bit, but it sounds like a good fit for this type of situation. So, how did they end up using Windows Virtual Desktop?
Yeah, so they already have a set of users that do call center work. They have developers that already are in multiple teams all around the world. But now that these people were home and needed to be productive, they needed to get active very quickly. So we wanted to stand up a POC environment to see if we can make this work. There's a couple of things under the hood that are important, from a networking perspective. Um, Host pools need to be set up, machines needed to be spun up from an image perspective to make sure that had the assets on it that these users are used to using on their desktops today, whether that be Office or if they're developers, if it's Visual Studio, or other assets that they use on a daily basis. So we spooled up a POC really quickly to build these standard images and throw that into Azure and create these machines, these host pools that run Windows Virtual Desktop. And we did that in about a week with an initial set of users, which were basically the IT management team and a core development team. I think we rolled out about 300 users in a week just to see if we could do it. And they were productive. They were the core team that were going back and forth with us on feedback and how could we change the experience and tweak it and optimize it to make it the best experience for them.
Oh wow, I come from government development and government work myself, and doing anything is is impressive in and of itself. Richard, I heard you've been doing some interesting things too. Could you tell us about some of the stuff you're doing with Windows Virtual Desktop?
Absolutely. So my story started off a little different in that before COVID hit last fall, right after WVD, it might have either just gone GA or it was the week before when we were still in preview with the 2019 version. I had done a presentation with a customer. over and with their European group, which is where most of their IT runs out of. And they liked it, but they're a Citrix shop on premises. So they thought, okay, well, WVD has potential, but we have enough other projects in Azure going on that after we did the demo, they said, okay, we have enough other workload, not enough hands to do it all. We're going to focus on some other what we call core enablement, set up domain controllers, get the networking work. So we worked on that. But then the COVID experience happened, and I literally got a call on a Monday morning at 5 a.m. my time. Hey, they just closed our offices in Hong Kong, and this is a large international engineering firm. So they were losing millions of dollars an hour of lost revenue because in their Asian market, they tend not to have company-assigned devices that their office users can take home. But they got the order from the government that they were locking the Hong Kong office doors. They didn't have a whole lot of awareness, or if they did, it wasn't communicated well. We would love to be able to get these users back online. They'd already seen the WVD proof of concept, but what helped there was their leadership broke down all barriers, got networking, identity, and their VDI team and said, this will happen. Let Microsoft partner with us. Trust their judgment. They have the experience in this. So this isn't going to be, they broke down all the political doors. So as we went through, we were fortunate in that they already had an image that we had done through as part of the proof of concept that was in the Azure region in Europe. So we just replicated that over there. And within 4 hours, we went from the customer having no Azure infrastructure in the Southeast Asia region to doing a site-to-site VPN to their on-premises firewall, spinning up a virtual network there. We didn't deploy domain controllers. The latency was good enough. They could still use their domain controllers on premises and then go through the motions of spinning up desktops. We used Windows 10 multi-session because in the early days of Azure, there were some limitations that things got tricky once you had more than 100 machines deployed at one time. So rather than battle that, Windows 10 multi-session allowed us to scale vertically where we could assign larger machines, but then have more users and have a higher density on those machines. So that allowed us to meet the needs. They only had about maybe 400 or 500 users in that office that had the immediate need. So that worked out well, and we took that strategy. We took advantage of the new integration of Azure files with Active Directory and scaled FS Logic. A lot of people sometimes forget allows you to actually add multiple file shares to scale horizontally as well. So rather than doing Azure NetApp files or building a scale out storage spaces direct cluster in Azure, we just decided to use Azure files and create multiple files. We saw with our numbers that about 100 users could store their profile per storage account, and then we just scaled that horizontally across. So yeah, within 4 hours, we had the first users logging in. Their leadership was really, really happy. And then from there, they said, okay, that was just the office worker pool. Then we went to GPUs. We had some challenges with capacity and quota with GPUs. We worked through that. We got enough GPU capacity to at least meet their immediate needs. And it was a good springboard that led to other things. Bruce had mentioned with his customer, they had a challenge with the point-to-site VPN, their client VPN product not being able to handle the capacity of all their end users. And in the European region and North America region, where those offices were starting to close as well, they had a similar story. Azure Virtual WAN came into play, which allowed us to then take advantage of this customer had given all of their European and North American users work assets. But their data centers were never designed for that large work from home scenario. Azure Virtual WAN allows you to scale up to 20,000 concurrent users per hub now. They were spread out all around Europe and North America. So we spun up multiple hubs, never hit anywhere near that, but we're very quickly able to spin up those endpoints and then just make those site-to-site VPN tunnels that already exist route. So they would connect to their local Azure hub with their point-to-site client, supported MFA, supported conditional access, and then be able to connect into their data centers without going through their traditional solution that they've had just because it wasn't sized to meet. So Windows Virtual Desktop combined with the ability of Azure networking and virtual WAN to support those remote worker scenarios, both kind of really highlighted and really shined during the whole COVID surprise, office closures.
Yeah, that's a great point, Richard, we have that multi-region architecture, 60 plus regions around the world. You can really deploy WVD in each of those regions so that you get that low latency experience wherever you are. And because Azure's backbone is all connected together, you can sync behind the scenes or access via, an express route circuit or a VPN circuit back to on premises from no matter what those locations are. but you can have those experiences closer to the user where they are, whether that's in, Asia Pacific, South America, Europe, or the US, which is super useful for my customer as well, because they have call centers out in Asia Pacific, and then they have a distributed workforce all around the world outside of that.
Yeah, it sounds thematically like I'm hearing, hey, we're able to build solutions quickly. It still provide a really good experience no matter where people are at. So I like to
Yep.
ask a fun question at the end, just to throw everyone off. What's the most unique thing you've ever seen Windows Virtual Desktop used to do?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Probably, some of the phone chat applications that they're using for custom scenarios out in the field are pretty interesting. So they have this custom homegrown built voice over IP app, and they're trying to use that in a multi-session desktop scenario. And so far, we think it's going to work. The POC that we did with this looks promising, and it looks like they'll be able to support a custom voice over IP app within Windows Virtual Desktop.
Yeah, Bruce, that sounds really interesting. Richard, I got to pick on you now.
So from a business standpoint, one of my customers, it's an engineering firm, was able to use a Samsung DeX tablet on an oil rig connected over a satellite high latency network connection and do full 3D models and imaging of the oil rig through AutoCAD that was hosted on a WVD instance at the Azure region that had the files. So on a non-business, I know of one company that develops games, and so some of those employees not only use the Windows Virtual Desktop GPU to play video games, but also to stream things with Stadia, the Xbox Live game streaming. And then I might know a few CSAs that use WVD to host things like Plex and media servers and those kinds of fun experiences as well.
Richard's got me beat.
Yeah, it sounds
He's
like I
got
have a
the
lot of
scenario.
homework here. So Richard, Bruce, this was amazing. Thank you both for jumping on with me to talk with people about Windows Virtual Desktop. You talked about both, like, important business scenarios, but you also talked about some cool stuff that I think everybody's going to go home and try to figure out how to do that. So again, this was Bruce Cosden and Richard Timmering, two cloud solution architects who really focus on Windows Virtual Desktop. Thank you so much again for coming on. And to everyone out there, we'll see you again really soon with another episode. Thank you again.